to touch on morality again. And Tracie, you have been with Matt on several shows that I would like you to correct me if my general idea of what he presents as morality is wrong, and I start from there. I think Matt is saying that morality is generally subjective with morality is generally objective, but its roots are subjective. So he starts with a subjective morality, and then the application of morality becomes objective. Is that generally what?
I really can't speak for Matt, but I do. My leaning about what I think he's describing is that he thinks that if we knew enough and if we understood enough about morality and about situations, we should be able to come up with better, best resolutions in line with what would be considered correct moral applications. That's and I say that real tentatively because I just don't like speaking for somebody else. But that's my impression of it.
For me, it hinges a lot on what you mean by subjective and objective. Some people say that if we, as a species, kind of have a consensus on what moral behavior is, then that becomes objective, if you look at it in that way. I kind of wonder, though, if your question hinges on discussions that you've had with Matt, perhaps it would be best, and I know that we did advertise the show today as being Matt and John, so maybe it would be best if you called back when Matt was on?
Well, I was hoping, this is my first time calling, and
I thought you, Matt, okay. I thought you said you'd spoken to Matt before. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I just watch. I've been listening to shows that he's been talking about it. But let me ask you this. This may cheer up the previous caller a little bit because I'm one of those atheists, and my mind, when I want to search something, I create problems for myself, and I try to solve those problems. So I criticize myself a lot. So when it comes to morality, I'm starting to get to a point that morality doesn't really exist or doesn't really matter. But before I get there, I want to ask you this. Is morality something that we have to do? Do we have to do the moral act every time?
Do we have to? No, clearly not. Right? I mean, I think there's plenty of examples to show that you don't always have to behave morally.
Okay.
There'd be no prison. There'd be no prisons. If
we would have no need for law enforcement if everyone behaved morally. And sometimes even the police don't believe they have to behave morally. So I mean, this is, I mean.
Okay. All right, got it. So the way I'm talking about this, and when you say what is morality to me, I'm going to what Sam Harris or Matt touch on is the human flourishing and human wellness. So if I start from there, I feel like just like everything else in life, there's a laboratory condition that you apply something. So morality could be completely objective on a laboratory situation, and then we could have absolute morality, but laboratory conditions don't apply in real life, so then absolute morality won't matter. So let's say if, generally speaking, killing is wrong, stealing is wrong, all of those are wrong at a blank page at the laboratory condition, but then every application of morality becomes subjective of time and people. Now, with that said, the question is, do you guys would say, is it moral to kill one to save five? Is it moral to kill a perfectly healthy one to save five?
I personally would not call it moral, but I don't go by the human wellness thing or whatever, whatever that is. I would say that when you are murdering a person, and I think this kind of this is contextual, right? What if I'm killing a guy who's going to kill those five?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you kill an innocent.
But here's the thing: when I kill a person, am I acting in accordance with compassion, with empathy, right? Am I showing that person empathy, equity, fairness, compassion? Do I care about their life at the point that I'm killing them? Am I putting value on their life?
Okay, so my question will be, morality being a bigger picture, does that person's life matter in contrast with the life of those 10 or 50 in the same?
And I'm saying that to me, here's the problem that I have though. Earlier on another call, I said there are some people that would say that evidence is bad evidence if it doesn't point to something, and some people would say it's not evidence at all if it doesn't point to something. I personally might not be the best person to answer your question because I am not convinced that it's okay to label killing the guy who's going to kill the people moral. I might call it not moral but justified. So I'm not sure, like to me it's almost like when you start saying that it's a moral action, what you're basically saying is that killing someone is moral because it had a good outcome. Because it had a good outcome, right? Like for other people. And yes. I would kind of personally might lean toward it was still an immoral act because I didn't treat that person in accordance with any of the moral tendencies, but I was exercising moral tendencies toward the people I was trying to save, and in doing so was willing to withdraw my moral obligations to the person who has this gun and take him out because I see it as a justifiable action, whether it's moral or not. But that's me, right? And I can't speak for somebody like Sam Harris and Matt because they start their morality at a different position than I do. So
if we direct the question towards the way you look at morality, do you personally try to do so? It's noble to do the moral thing all the time, but you will withdraw the moral act for the like if you were in the situation.
Here's my question. Here's my wait. This might help. Okay, like for example, deceit is generally viewed as immoral. To lie to people, to be dishonest, right? We consider that to be something that does not cultivate trust between people.
I agree.
And yet, if I lied to a Nazi to say I didn't have Jews hiding in my attic, and they go to the next house and I saved those Jews, the question would be, did I behave immorally because I felt like it was the right thing to do at the time to not treat them in a moral way because I wanted to serve another goal that I felt was also a moral goal, right? So I wanted to serve a moral goal over here, but to do that, I had to be deceitful and dishonest and do things against my moral tendencies with this other person because I wanted to create a moral situation over here. And I can't be moral to him and moral to them because to tell him the truth then is going to throw them under the bus. It's going to mean that I'm literally willing to kill them to let them die.
Exactly.
And so there are these questions about whether a person would say you acted morally by denying the moral tendencies to the person you lied to, as opposed to somebody who might say you were willing to behave immorally because you had another moral goal over here that you felt was more immediate or more important to you. I'm not telling anybody how to perceive that. I'm just saying that for myself, I am not sure that I'm even clear on how I label that or how I view it.
Okay. So I totally understand that. I respect that because the way that's how I think, and it draws me to the conclusion that I'm getting to right now. It's this. So if morality is to do the right thing, not to lie, not to kill, and any action that you are in a certain situation, the action that you take is withdraw from that morality, and I would call it, quote unquote, the right thing, to lie to the Nazi or to kill that one guy. If we withdraw and do the right thing, it seems to me that morality is not an important thing anymore because just on an every day-by-day basis, if you decide not to lie, not to steal, not to murder on a day-by-day basis, but then when the times get tough,
right?
When it really matters, then the time gets tough and the situation gets tough, morality fades away because it's not important anymore, and they're doing the right thing based on the situation becomes more important. So why is conversation about morality that important? If at the
because different people define it. Wait. Different people define it in different ways, right? So, for example, when Matt says he's into well-being, right?
Yes. Promoting
well-being, that's a whole different construct. So Matt's looking at this in a way that says, does it promote, like, is there a way to deal with the situation I'm confronted with that optimizes well-being, right? And so when you look at it that way, you're saying he would probably, I mean, if I was looking at it that way, I would say lying to the Nazis was the moral thing to do, right? Because it optimized well-being.
But the problem I have with that, even when I think about that way, I think like if you consider that a moral act to lie or kill one to save some, then you can broaden the perspective, and then all of a sudden there are going to be some context that slavery is good, some context that genocide is good, some context that mass murder is moral, and then all of a sudden those can be justified as a moral act. Then it becomes questionable. I mean, is it moral that we bomb North Korea first to prevent them to bomb us? Then in context of Matt's or Sam Harris's view, it becomes moral.
And this is why I like to look at those tendencies, right? To me, what it comes down to is, was my decision driven by those moral tendencies? If it wasn't, then what I did was either not moral or immoral, right? If I did the antithesis of those tendencies, I was behaving immorally. If I didn't need to incorporate, immoral tendencies or moral tendencies, then it's not a moral, it's not a moral judgment involved. But if those tendencies are not applied, then I'm certainly not behaving morally toward the person I'm engaging, right? That's how I look at it. I know, though, that I'm in like a bizarre minority. Most people don't look at it this way. But I'm like, are those tendencies in play? Because if they're not in play, if I treat John in a way where those tendencies are not in play, and I'm doing things to hurt him, I would say that as a human being, I'm not using the moral tendencies, I'm using the antithesis of them. I'm behaving immorally toward John, although I may be behaving super morally toward a bunch of people he was going to hurt.
Yeah, but the question is, do you value moral tendencies and morality more than the right thing? Which one is more important to you?
It depends on the context. I think that in general, in the normal course of events, it is best for society, for us to be able to trust each other, to respect each other. When we start to treat each other like I'm going to cheat you, I'm going to lie to you, I might kill you and your family, when you can't trust your neighbors, that's a social breakdown. So
but isn't that norm isn't that a norm in society, that if you live a society with no issues, like a small group, if they don't have an issue with poverty or hunger or that, normally they will act moral, normally they wouldn't cheat. So why would morality be an important discussion, that if people are not put in a certain situations, like people who steal,
well, I mean, wait a second. I mean, I think you're right that discussions around morality generally, come up at times where somebody's behaving in a way that's immoral. You hardly ever hear people talking about morality in situations where nobody's behaving badly.
Exactly.
I agree.
And then when the situations come up, then morality fades away, then the right thing comes in. I mean,
okay.
Normal. I'm not gonna go and steal something in a normal day. But if I'm starving, I would steal. So when I'm starving, I'm not in a general, everyday, relaxed situation that morality matters. At that point, when I'm starving, then morality goes out the window. Who cares about morality if I'm starving? I
understand what you're saying. I mean, I don't know what else to add to it. I understand what you're saying.
I think you and Tracie are kind of in agreement there. It's just that some people equate morality and the right thing to be the same thing.
And I think that people would tend to see it as mitigated, right? Like, I mean, you're right. If somebody stole something and you found out that they had a starving family and they were trying to steal food, you would tend to probably be compassionate toward that person. Even though you acknowledge that they stole, you understand the reasons. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like maybe stealing something from someone else isn't a moral thing to do, and yet you were trying to help and you were exercising moral tendencies elsewhere. And so it was like you had to make a decision about whether to behave immorally here or there. And to you, it was more important to be moral over here than it was here. And so, I mean, I think that's why we have in courts, for example, mitigating circumstances where we say somebody did something wrong, but they had this this really bad situation that changes our view of whether or not what they did was justified. We still see it as wrong. You can still be convicted of it, but you'll probably get like a lighter sentence, or you may get probation, or because we see it as not just being malicious, right?
And that's why it's called
I very much appreciate your show. I know you guys are over time. I really, really appreciate it, and I would like to call sometime back and talk to Matt.
I think you should. Yeah, I really think you should.
Yeah, Matt loves to talk about morality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How would I know who is on the show.
Usually the schedule at the website is correct. Today it was wrong, but normally it's right.
Atheist-experience.com
I appreciate it. John, Tracie, I really appreciate your time and your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. Yeah, that's why they're called moral dilemmas, because you're balancing one thing that's moral with another thing that's moral, and you have to make a decision.
Yeah, you do. So